I didn't always wear designer suits or fly private. Truth is, the first time I sat in a luxury car, I wasn't the one driving, it was my ex, and I was the passenger. And the last time I saw him, I was in scrubs, not silk. But let me take you back to the very beginning, before the millions, before the hospital, before I made the decision that would change everything. I was 22, freshly pregnant, deeply in love, and completely naive. My name is Ava. Back then, I believed life followed a straight line: college, job, love, family, and success. I didn't realize that sometimes the line snaps, and when it does, you either fall apart or rebuild something stronger. He was my everything, Tyler. Charismatic, ambitious, dangerous, in the way that some dreams are too big for small hearts. He wanted it all, but not the responsibility that came with it. So when I told him I was pregnant, he didn't offer a ring or a promise. He offered silence. And then absence. I cried for 3 weeks straight. My pride was shattered, but not my will. I dropped out of school, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. I was studying to become a doctor. Instead, I found myself folding towels in a hotel, cleaning up after people who wouldn't even look me in the eye. Every night, I would whisper to the baby growing inside me, "We're going to make it. Somehow we're going to make it." When my daughter, Emery, was born, I held her and made a vow. I didn't want her to inherit my pain. I didn't want her to think that love should hurt or that success was something reserved for the chosen few. I wanted her to see her mother rise. So I started small. I enrolled in night school while juggling 2 jobs, waitressing during the day, assisting a nurse during evening shifts. I would come home exhausted, my feet swollen, my hands raw. But I'd look at Emery sleeping and think, one day, she'll know. One night during a nursing shift, I saw a woman walk into the ER, tall, graceful, commanding attention without trying. She was the hospital's CEO, and when I asked around, I learned she had started as a janitor. That night, something cracked open in me. If she could climb the ladder from the basement to the boardroom, why couldn't I? That question haunted me. And then it drove me. I changed my schedule, cut out distractions, and went all in. I'd study on my lunch breaks, record lectures to play while doing laundry, and even taught Emery her ABCs using my anatomy flashcards. One day, while balancing a tray of soup for a patient, my phone buzzed. It was an email. I had passed my RN exams. I ran to the restroom and cried. Not out of sadness, but because I had just taken the first real step out of the shadows. But success doesn't come in a straight line. And my next challenge would shake everything I believed about love, resilience, and fate. Nursing saved me. Not just financially, it gave me structure, purpose, and a reason to get out of bed on the hardest days. I was finally on a path that felt mine. But even as I walked hospital hallways with my head held high, I knew something was missing. Every night I watched patients struggle through bureaucracy, outdated tech, and miscommunication that cost lives. I watched nurses cry in storage closets because they couldn't get basic tools on time. I saw families devastated because of errors a better system could have prevented. And somewhere in the middle of one of those chaotic shifts, the idea found me. I wasn't thinking about being a millionaire. I wasn't chasing glory. I was just trying to solve a problem. It started with a notebook. I'd write down everything I saw broken: missed medication times, slow documentation, outdated tech that glitched mid-surgery prep. My coworkers laughed. Ava's building a better hospital in her head. They'd joke. They had no idea I was. One night, I was charting late when a young intern approached. His name was Jonah. Quiet, brilliant, and deeply curious. He peeked over my notes and said, "Why don't we build it?" I blinked at him. Build what? He pointed to my mess of pages. All of it. But simpler. Smarter. Digital. Real-time updates. Personalized alerts. Voice-to-text for nurses. What if we could do for hospitals what Apple did for phones? I stared at him like he'd spoken in a foreign language. But he wasn't joking. And neither was I. We began meeting in the supply closet during breaks. Not for romance, for strategy. Jonah had a computer science degree and a startup spirit. I had real-world insight and a fire no one could dim. We were the perfect mismatch. He built prototypes. I tested them during shifts and scribbled down what didn't work. We called it Pulse Point, a streamlined, intelligent software that helped nurses manage patient care with voice commands, track vitals in real time, and communicate seamlessly with doctors. We didn't have money, but we had sleepless nights, borrowed laptops, and raw determination. While Emery slept, I coded. On my days off, I pitched to local clinics. Most said no. A few said maybe. One finally said yes. That was all we needed. The first clinic that used Pulse Point reported a 35% improvement in nurse efficiency and a dramatic drop in medication errors. We were on to something. Investors started calling. We built a small team. Jonah quit the hospital. I didn't. I needed the paycheck. Then the storm hit. One evening, I walked into a meeting and found Jonah shaking hands with a man I knew all too well. Tyler, my ex. The same one who left when I was pregnant, now dressed in a sharp blazer, smiling like he belonged. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Jonah looked at me, confused. You two know each other? Tyler extended his hand like we were old friends. She's the mother of my child, he said coolly. And from what I hear, the brains behind all this. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat down. Tyler was an angel investor now, backed a dozen startups, and apparently had a talent for sniffing out gold. And he smelled it on Pulse Point. He offered us $500,000 in seed funding. More money than I'd ever seen. But it came with a condition, 40% of the company. And Tyler would be chairman. I told Jonah no. He told me to think like a founder, not an ex-girlfriend. We fought. Badly. Jonah thought I was letting emotions get in the way. I thought he was letting greed blur his judgment. I walked away from that meeting with nothing but fury and a sick feeling in my gut. 2 days later, I got an email. Jonah accepted the deal. Without me. He claimed I was too emotionally involved to make sound business decisions. He removed me as co-founder and offered a consulting role. I laughed through tears. I had built this. I bled for it. And just like that, it was gone. I walked home in the rain that night. Emery asked why I was crying. I told her the truth. I lost something I loved. She looked up at me with those bright eyes and whispered, "Then make something new." That night, I did. I opened my laptop. Started fresh. A new name. A new vision. A new kind of war. Not out of revenge. Out of rebirth. I could have let it break me. Honestly, it would have been easier to crawl back into the shadows, nurse my wounds, and pretend none of it had ever happened. But I'd already spent too much of my life feeling powerless. Abandoned once by a man who ran at the first sign of responsibility. Betrayed again by someone I thought was a partner. This time, I would not be the one left behind. The next morning, I walked into my nursing shift with a fire in my chest I hadn't felt before. Between checking vitals and changing IVs, I wrote code on sticky notes. I had no office, no investors, no team, but I had a purpose. And sometimes, purpose is more dangerous than money. I named my second venture, Vitalink. This wasn't just another medical software. It was a movement. Vitalink wasn't about streamlining. It was about storytelling. Every feature came from a moment I'd lived. I built it for the single mom on her third overnight shift. For the patient whose medication was missed. For the janitor, the nurse, the intern who all got overlooked. For me. But I had no funding. So I got creative. I sold my car. Bought a used bike for $50. I used public Wi-Fi outside a 24-hour diner for months. On weekends, I taught CPR classes and used the money to buy server space. I made videos, raw, honest clips of me in scrubs, talking about the broken healthcare system. I told the truth. About Pulse Point, about being pushed out, about building something better not out of revenge, but out of a belief that people deserved more. The internet listened. A clip of me sitting on the hospital floor during a break, talking about what it's like to miss your daughter's birthday because you're understaffed, went viral. Nurses from all over the country messaged me. They didn't just want Vitalink. They needed it. Then came the call that changed everything. A woman named Nadira. a venture capitalist with a background in healthcare and a soft spot for underdogs. She said, "I've never invested in someone so early stage, but I've also never seen fire like yours." She wired me $150,000 2 days later. I hired 2 engineers, a UI designer, and a brand strategist, former nurses, every one of them. We didn't build from the top down. We built from the ground up. I called hospitals personally, drove cross-state to pitch in person. We rolled out our first beta at a clinic in Ohio. The staff cried after using it for a week. Then came the national conference in Chicago. I walked in wearing a borrowed blazer, standing shoulder to shoulder with giants. Pulse Point had a massive booth. Tyler stood at the center like a king, shaking hands, giving interviews. His software had gone public. He was now a millionaire. The crowd adored him. And then someone handed him a coffee. I didn't even look at him. I walked past as reporters whispered. I stood at my tiny table with a printed banner and a $9 sign that read, "Built by Nurses." I only needed 5 minutes. When I got up to speak on the small stage panel, I told them the truth. I'm not here to impress you with numbers. I'm here to tell you that innovation doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it wears scrubs. Vitalink is built by people who've held dying hands, missed Christmas with their kids, and cleaned wounds for minimum wage. We didn't start in Silicon Valley. We started in the supply closet. And we're here to change everything. They gave me a standing ovation. A week later, we signed our first hospital system contract. Then another. And another. In 6 months, we expanded to 11 states. In a year, we were in 67 hospitals. By year 3, we crossed $100 million in revenue. Nurses loved us. Doctors respected us. Patients felt safer. I hired a full team of single mothers and underrepresented engineers. I gave stock options to nurses. We didn't just grow, we redefined what growth looked like. Then Forbes called. They put me on the cover. From scrubs to silicon, the billionaire nurse who built a healthcare revolution. I cried in the back of a rideshare the day I saw it on newsstands. Not because I had made it, but because every time someone saw that cover, they would know your past doesn't get to dictate your future. And just when I thought the story had peaked, fate turned the page again. It started like any other morning. Clipboard in hand, I walked the corridors of St. Mercy General, one of the flagship hospitals that had just adopted Vitalink. I wasn't supposed to be doing rounds. I hadn't for years. But sometimes I liked to surprise the staff, slip into my scrubs and blend in. It grounded me, reminded me where I started. That morning, there was a commotion in ER. A high-priority case had just been rushed in, possible cardiac arrest. The team swarmed around the gurney, nurses shouting vitals, a young intern fumbling with an oxygen mask. Then I saw him, pale, trembling, hooked up to monitors, and barely conscious. Tyler. I froze. It had been almost 5 years since I'd last seen him in person. The man who abandoned me when I was pregnant. The one who stole my idea, took the credit, erased my name from the history I helped build. The one who is now lying helpless, breath shallow, heartbeat irregular. I wanted to walk away. Instead, I stepped forward. Vitals? I asked calmly. My voice didn't shake. I slipped into the role like a second skin, efficient, cool, focused. BP's crashing, someone called. We're losing him. I reached for the crash cart and started compressions. 1, 2, 3, just like I'd taught all those CPR classes years ago. Time blurred. All I could hear was the beeping of the monitor and the pounding in my own chest. I didn't see the man who left me crying on the floor. I saw a human being. Fragile. Fading. And for reasons I still don't fully understand, I kept fighting. Until finally, beep, beep, beep. His rhythm steadied. We stabilized him. Later, when he was conscious, they wheeled him into recovery. I stood at the foot of his bed, watching the man who once shattered me look up with confusion in his eyes. He blinked. Ava. Yeah, I said, arms crossed. It's me. He looked away, ashamed. And for the first time, I wasn't angry. Just tired. I didn't know, he murmured. Didn't know how to handle it. You. The baby. Everything. You didn't want to know, I replied. There's a difference. He swallowed hard. I heard what you built. Vitalink. It's incredible. I didn't respond. I guess you won, he added, trying to smile. You're the billionaire now. I stepped closer, voice soft but firm. This was never a competition. I didn't build this to beat you. I built it to heal what people like you break. Silence hung in the air. Then, something unexpected happened. He began to cry. Not the tears of a manipulator or someone playing for sympathy, but real, quiet, broken sobs. And I saw it, not just the man he had become, but the boy he never stopped being. Scared. Running from responsibility. From consequence. From love. You saved my life, he whispered. I nodded. I save lives. That's what I do. Then I turned and walked out. Weeks passed. I didn't tell anyone about that day, not at first. But one afternoon, Emery, now 11, found a photo of Tyler in an old drawer. Is this my dad? She asked. I didn't lie. Yes. He was in the hospital. I helped take care of him. She looked at me, quiet for a moment. Then she asked, did he say sorry? I thought about it. He didn't have to. I forgave him a long time ago. Emery smiled. You're stronger than anyone I know. That night, as I tucked her in, I realized something. Success isn't about headlines. It's not about net worth or being on magazine covers. It's about legacy. And mine was never going to be defined by the man who walked away. It would be defined by the child I raised. The lives we changed. The nurses who finally felt seen. The patients who felt safe. The idea that someone like me, abandoned, overlooked, underestimated, could rise, not in spite of the pain but because of it.